Why are drugs seen as a sin, but not alcohol? So, good question here. And I see where you're coming from, because both of these substances, both drugs and alcohol, can have mind-altering effects, so to speak. They change the way in which we interact with the world and the way in which we view the world, to the point where it actually can get to the point of reducing our volition, our ability to actually act as humans, which you see if you see someone who's incredibly high or stoned. Like they're not really acting as themselves. They're incapable of making what would be called by St. Thomas Aquinas as truly human act. Now, the reason why, as far as I can tell, that there's sort of a difference between them is the idea of intent. Now, in specifically recreational drugs, I'm going to take off the whole idea of medical drugs. Like if you're doing this for health reasons, like use it. Like if you are in a battlefield and you get wounded and you take morphine so that you don't feel the pain, like that's perfectly understandable, perfectly acceptable. And there's an intention there not to use this to reduce my faculties to the point where I can no longer act as a human, but simply to numb the pain, to dull the pain. And in this case, I think it's very important because you see the intention in recreational drug use to get to that point in which you are no longer culpable, in the sense, of your actions. You've lost the ability to make a truly human action. Now, in alcohol, we see something that's slightly different, slightly. If you're going off and drinking to the point where you are completely plastered, like, obviously that's wrong. St. Paul, on numerous occasions, condemns this. He talks about how drunkards cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven. So this idea of acting in a way so that you are plastered, that you are unable to act as a human, to do a truly human act, that would be morally wrong, and I would treat it much the same as getting stoned. Like this idea that drugs or alcohol, functionally they're the same if that's your intention. Now, if you're drinking a very little bit, okay, that's acceptable. St. Thomas Aquinas allegedly, I have never actually seen where he writes it, but allegedly said that in drinking alcohol, you can drink to the point of hilarity or lightheartedness. Once you get to that point, after that, you're entering into the realm in which you can no longer perform a human action, in which you are unable to be who you are, so to speak. And that's where it would enter into the realm of immorality. But before that, it's okay. Now, on like the level of drugs, we actually can see somewhat of a parallel here with something like tobacco or something like smoking a pipe. Personally, I think that was wrong for different reasons, for health reasons, but on the sense of something that causes changes in the mind or unable to act as a truly human, that would be a similar thing. If it's just to like get to the point of joy or point of lightheartedness, morally acceptable, specifically regarding the consequences of the effects on the mind, not so much on health reasons. For health reasons, I would think you should not do it. But on this point of affecting the mind, we see a similar thing going on with alcohol. So, summation of everything I just said, the idea being it depends on your intent. If you're using recreational drugs or if you're drinking to get plastered, on a moral level, they're pretty much the same. If you're drinking to the point of hilarity, just to have lightheartedness, okay, morally acceptable, and also the same with something like tobacco or smoking a pipe. If it's done just for the point of lightheartedness, morally acceptable. If it goes beyond that to the point of actually being unable to do a human act, that's when it enters into immorality.